which made Benjamin growl at him. The officer ignored the warning growls and moved to put handcuffs on me. Seeing the officer manhandling me, Benjamin lunged for his leg and bit him hard around his calf, which made the officer kick him hard with his other leg. Poor Benjamin went flying through the air and landed hard against a shelf and then lay there still. I tried to protest and demand that I be allowed to check on Benjamin to make sure he was okay. But the officer refused and put me in handcuffs and dragged me out of the store and threw me in the back of his police cruiser. He then brought me down to the police station where I was forced to wait in the lobby while he filed the paperwork for my arrest. He claimed I was making a public disturbance and that I had assaulted him by commanding my dog to attack him, which was a complete lie, but so far no one was listening to me. Hi there, my name is Gracie, and I encountered one of the worst human beings you could ever imagine recently. Let me start off by saying that I have a vision impairment. I can still see, but I am legally blind and I need the help of a service dog in order to navigate through the world, and it can be very challenging sometimes. Both because the world isn't really designed for people like me, but also because sometimes I encounter people that don't think my service dog should be allowed in certain places. So I was born with a degenerative eye condition that makes it so that while I can see shades of colors and light, my range of vision is so poor that I qualified for a service dog, and getting Benjamin was honestly a game changer for me. He has been so incredibly helpful and has changed my life in so many amazing ways. Not only does he provide some companionship, but without him, I couldn't navigate around the city. It was on one such outing that I had the misfortune of encountering a police officer that made it his mission to harass me. I was at a local clothing store looking for a new jacket when the clerk came over and demanded to know why I had a dog in his store.
Excuse me, miss, but there are no pets allowed in the store. Could you please tie your dog up outside?
Oh? Do you mean Benjamin? He's a service animal. I can assure you that I'm allowed to have him in here without him. I wouldn't be able to move around.
Miss, I wasn't born yesterday. You don't need that dog, and the store policy is that no animals be allowed in the store. I'm sorry, but you'll have to take him outside.
Sir, I don't mean to be rude, but he is legally allowed to be here. I need his help.
What seems to be the problem here? This woman brought a dog into the store and refuses to remove it, even though it is against store policy.
And I'm trying to tell him that it's a service animal. I have a legal right to bring him everywhere I go.
Oh, is that a fact? And what condition do you have that allows you to have a service dog?
I'm legally blind, sir. Benjamin is my seeing eye dog.
Yeah, I don't buy it. You were looking at those jackets. If you were actually blind, then you couldn't see them.
Yes, I have some very limited vision, but not enough to navigate the world.
Nope, I don't believe you. Listen, you have two options. Either tie the dog up outside or I can just arrest you for disturbing the public. What's it going to be?
I was shocked at how callous both of them were being, but only a little. It wasn't the first time that I had encountered people like them. I tried to show the officer the paperwork that proved what I was saying, but he refused to look at it, and so I resigned to just leave instead. Fine, I'll leave, but this is discrimination.
Yeah, right. Listen, lady, I'll keep my eye on you and you better not try to pull this stunt again, or I'll haul you down to the station.
It was absurd, but I didn't want any problems, so I left. Annoyed and frustrated, I went home and ordered a jacket from an online store. I prefer to shop local and support small businesses, but I didn't want to risk having another encounter. After that, I went about my day, tidying up my house when it grew close to dinner time. Feeling hungry, I went to the fridge to decide what I would make, and saw that I was out of a few ingredients I would need to make my favorite meal. Sighing heavily, I got ready to head out and down to the grocery store. After a few minutes of walking up and down the aisles, though, I had my second encounter with the same officer as from before.
I thought I warned you about bringing that animal into stores. I told you there would be consequences if you did.
And I tried to show you the paperwork that said that I had the legal right to bring Benjamin with me wherever I go. I'm blind and I need my service animal. If you would just look at the paperwork, then you would believe me.
I've heard this nonsense before, and I'm not buying it. You have exactly 2 seconds to leave this store right away, or I'm putting that dog in the pound and you in handcuffs.
Just look at the paperwork. It will clear all this up. Why are you being so dismissive?
Last warning.
When it was clear that I wasn't backing down, the officer made a move towards me in a rather aggressive manner, which made Benjamin growl at him. The officer ignored the warning growls and moved to put handcuffs on me. Seeing the officer manhandling me, Benjamin lunged for his leg and bit him hard around his calf, which made the officer kick him hard with his other leg. Poor Benjamin went flying through the air and landed hard against a shelf and then lay there still. I tried to protest and demand that I be allowed to check on Benjamin to make sure he was okay, but the officer refused and put me in handcuffs and dragged me out of the store and threw me in the back of his police cruiser. He then brought me down to the police station where I was forced to wait in the lobby while he filed the paperwork for my arrest. He claimed I was making a public disturbance and that I had assaulted him by commanding my dog to attack him, which was a complete lie, but so far no one was listening to me, until one officer came over and sat down next to me.
Hello there. So Dan claims that you attacked him? Can you give me your side of the story?
Yes. I have a seeing eye dog, and Officer Dan refused to look at the paperwork that I have to prove that Benjamin, my dog, is a service animal, and therefore allowed to be wherever I am. He threatened me, and Benjamin did bite him, but only because he was trying to protect me. Can you please tell me what happened to my dog? What's going on here?
From what I hear, your dog went to the pound. I'll look into what their condition is, though. Can I see the paperwork?
Since my hands were still in handcuffs, I told her where I kept the paperwork in my purse. I saw her pull it out and begin to inspect it when I heard loudly sigh in frustration.
I knew it. This isn't the first time that Dan has messed up like this. I swear that man has only 2 brain cells in that entire head of his.
Does that mean you believe me?
Yes, I do. Here, let me take you out of those handcuffs. I do ask that you wait here, though, while I go and sort all of this out.
She then took the handcuffs off and then went back to speak with the other officers. I couldn't see what was going on, but I heard a lot of shouting and a few people calling Officer Dan some not very flattering names. After several minutes, Officer Emily returned and sat down next to me again.
Okay, the good news is that Benjamin is shaken up from what happened, but he is okay, and they are bringing him here. Once they do, I'll have an officer drive you home.
What about the charges against me?
They have all been dropped and Dan is facing suspension and more than likely he will be fired. I'm very sorry for the inconvenience that he caused.
When Benjamin arrived, we were both very relieved to be reunited with one another, and just as Officer Emily stated, a different officer drove us home. The next day, though, I contacted a lawyer and told them about what had happened. I knew that I had a case to sue Officer Dan and I was going to take it. After all, he had assaulted me and Benjamin, and I wasn't going to just let him get away with it. I knew that he was probably going to get fired, but that wasn't enough. As my lawyer prepared my case, he contacted the local news station and they interviewed me and allowed me to tell my story. I knew that it would help my case as it would expose what the cop did to me and get the public on my side, but it also gave me an opportunity to make people aware of the kind of discrimination that people like myself face all the time. Officer Dan ended up facing a lot of public backlash from the case, and rather than just be suspended, the police department were forced to fire him in order to save face with the public. People would curse him, and even some people would throw things at him when he would go out in public. He soon became a shut-in and only left his house when he was forced to go to court. Thankfully, my lawyer found several people that were in the grocery store the day that I was detained, and they all testified that I had tried to show Officer Dan my paperwork, and that he chose to ignore it and act aggressively instead. Between their testimony and the news story, the court was completely in favor of me, and they awarded me over $100,000. The amount was more than I could ever hope for, and since he had been fired from the police, that meant that Dan was on the hook for the entire amount. To be honest, though, for me, it was never about the money, and while I did keep some of it to help make my life easier, I donated most of it to the charity that had trained Benjamin. I felt that it wasn't just a win for myself, but for all people like me, and I wanted to help spread the good fortune to others. After all, Benjamin has helped make my life amazing, and I would love for others to have that same joy. As for Officer Dan, someone even posted his pictures online as an adult star looking for a job, and with that his wife and family cut him off. Well, hopefully he learned his lesson, and if not, then hopefully he never finds himself in a position of power ever again. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel. She flared up when I talked about wanting to resign.
How dare you? Who's going to do your work? Who even knows if your womb is strong enough to keep that child?
Excuse me?
You're not excused. You're going to remain here until I find a replacement for you. That stupid pregnancy of yours is not an excuse to quit your job. You're just a lazy woman. Now get out of my office.
Hello, everyone. My name's Steph, and I'm married to Jay. Jay and I met about 6 years ago and got married months later. Last year, we celebrated our 5th-year marriage anniversary. You might be guessing we were already blessed with kids. Well, the opposite was the case. I had no child of my own for 5 whole years. Jay and I had checked ourselves, but we both had no disease delaying childbirth. We were just not blessed yet. My 5th anniversary wasn't enjoyable for me. I felt ashamed of myself. I was already 30 and didn't have any child while my friends already had children. I was surrounded by good people, though. My friends didn't bring their kids to the party. They wanted me to have all the fun I wanted without thinking about my childlessness. I knew they did that with pure intentions, but it made me feel bad. I felt like a bad friend for making them leave their kids behind for me. I was going to hold my emotions, but when I saw some of my friends trying to comfort their kids over the phone, I couldn't take it anymore. I rushed inside the house and burst into tears. Jay must have noticed because he followed me. Seeing me crying, he immediately understood what the issue was.
I can ask everyone to leave if you want, babe.
I didn't want to be ungrateful, so I decided to end the party myself. I left the house with Jay and went to address everyone. I lied about being weak and tired and appreciated them for showing up. I could see that most of them wanted to go, and I felt grateful that they were willing to stay with me even though their kids badly needed them. I ended the party and went back in with Jay. He comforted me, and we went to bed. The next day, I had to return to work. I had a heartless boss whom I didn't want to ever offend. Harper was the manager of the company, and she was known to be strict and evil. Everyone tried their best to avoid her as much as possible. When I walked into the building, the first person my eyes landed on was Harper. I froze, seeing how she was staring at me. I quietly walked over and greeted her. Well, unfortunately, I received a merciless slap on my right cheek, the force causing me to stagger a little.
You're 5 minutes late, idiot. Yesterday was your fruitless wedding anniversary, not today. You had no right to be late.
But there was traffic. I left home early, but there was a heavy traffic. It was announced in the news, ma'am. I was so close to crying. The slap stung so much, and she called my marriage fruitless. Again. Well, nearly everyone at work knew about my childlessness. Even though I hated the sympathy they always showed to me, I hated the fact that my boss always used it mock me even more.
So I didn't experience the traffic, right? You're so lazy. That's why you don't have a child of your own. The universe probably knows you won't be able to take care of one.
Excuse me, Mrs. Harper, but you're going overboard now. Please stop it. I apologize for being late. It will never repeat itself. It would have been better if she'd just listened to me. But she refused. That troublesome woman. As I was about to walk past her, she suddenly pulled me back by my hair. I let out a painful cry, but she refused to let go of my hair.
Next time, speak responsibly, okay? Do you hear me, childless woman?
I nodded in tears. All I wanted to do was run away and hide. Luckily, my wish came true. Just as she let go of my hair, her attention was shifted to another worker who just came in. I bowed my head in shame and rushed down to my office where I cried quietly. Well, I managed to go through the rest of the day without encountering Harper, and I felt relaxed. Time passed by until August when I began getting some strange symptoms. I would often have saliva in my mouth, pee often, feel dizzy, and so on. When I began sleeping too much at work and noticed that I also missed my period, I went to the hospital for a test. There, I got the happiest and most shocking news I'd ever received.
Congratulations, Mrs. Steph. You're 3 weeks pregnant.
I couldn't stop crying. I was trembling with excitement. I couldn't speak. The doctor had to help me calm down before I was finally able to call Jay. He couldn't believe we were having our child after waiting for so long. He quickly drove to meet me at the hospital. The doctor listed some things to avoid, and stress was among. When we got home, Jay asked me to quit my job. Honestly, I was also considering it because I wanted to experience every single steps toward motherhood. I'll speak to Harper about it tomorrow. I can't believe we're going to have a baby. I'm so happy. Well, things didn't go as planned with Harper. She flared up when I talked about wanting to resign.
How dare you? Who's going to do your work? Who even knows if your womb is strong enough to keep that child?
Excuse me?
You're not excused. You're going to remain here until I find a replacement for you. That stupid pregnancy of yours is not an excuse to quit your job. You're just a lazy woman. Now get out of my office.
I felt so angry about how she spoke to me, but I couldn't do anything about it. I decided to just wait until my replacement was found. When I told Jay, he didn't agree at first.
You heard the doctor, honey. You have to avoid stress. I can't have you continuing to work there. Understand me.
I understand, but I think it's only right to wait until a replacement is found. I promise you I won't stress our baby.
Not just our baby. Don't stress yourself too.
I didn't tell Jay what Harper had said about my womb. He wouldn't allow me work there at all for sure. It could also lead him to wanting to investigate how I was being treated at work. I knew that if Jay happened to hear about Harper's behavior, he would arrest her. He didn't joke with me. Without Harper's knowledge, I'd gone to the CEO of the company. I told her about my years of being childless and finally having a growing child in the womb. Unlike Harper, the woman was so happy for me that she nearly cried. She asked me to take a long break if I still wanted my job back after delivery. I didn't expect that, but I was happy to hear it.
We'll just find a temporary worker until you're ready to come back.
She also gave me a third option, which was working from home at a flexible time. I requested a few days to think about it, and the woman accepted. I left there happily. When I told Jay, he asked me to go with the second option. I went back to the CEO the next day and told him I would appreciate them giving me a chance to come back after childbirth. The woman didn't argue. She asked if I could wait until they found a replacement, and I agreed after she assured me that it wouldn't be up to a week. Well, Harper happened to find out about my talk with the CEO, and she confronted me. Again, she was holding me by my hair in front of so many workers.
You stupid thing. You thought you could make me look bad in front of the CEO?
No, I never said anything about you. She didn't believe me. She slapped me twice and pulled my hair harder, threatening to kill me if I ever told the CEO about her. She also vowed to make me work for 3 months more before she will find a replacement for me. I knew it would get to that. Harper was evil, like I said. Jay refused to accept when I told him about it. After begging for a long time, he asked me to quit if a month elapsed, and I agreed. It didn't take long before 1 month reached. A replacement hadn't been found, and Harper had made me work 2 times harder throughout the month. Immediately after I got my pay, I went straight to the CEO and told him I was resigning. I wasn't going to return after childbirth. It made the woman feel bad. I was forced to tell her the real reason for my action, which was Harper. Her mouth hung open in shock. She couldn't believe her ears, but she agreed to my resignation. The woman decided to go to my department with me because she wanted to speak to Harper. Well, fortunately, he caught Harper right in the middle of bullying another worker. When the CEO appeared, Harper didn't know, so she kept slapping the worker and talking bad about him.
I can't believe this. Harper, is this how you treat my workers after all I've done for you?
We could all see how Harper immediately got scared. She couldn't meet anyone's eyes.
You mocked your fellow woman's childlessness and made her work for longer despite knowing her condition. How despicable can you be, Harper?
She didn't just make me work harder, ma'am. Harper physically abused me several times, as well as other workers. Harper tried to deny it, but a worker suddenly stepped forward and began playing videos of Harper abusing different workers, which she'd recorded. The CEO was livid. She slapped Harper, twice.
You're fired, you stupid thing. Don't ever show your face here again.
We also got to know that Harper was living in one of the CEO's house. The CEO asked her to leave, and Harper rudely left the company. Well, I didn't tell Jay about it. The CEO still told me a space would always be open to me if I ever needed to return to the company after childbirth. About 2 months after the whole issue, I was watching the news when I saw Harper. She was wailing and looked so different. She'd grown leather, her hair looked rough, and she had dark under eyes and huge eye bags. Apparently, she'd tried to invest after she got thrown out of the CEO's life, but it turned out to be a scam. The scammer had scammed her and many other business owners, but Harper's was the biggest. She'd invested all of her money, her entire savings included. The scammer had escaped with everything. I smiled as I watched her in pain and misery. Karma dealt with her real good. I had my baby a few months later. Well, babies. I had twins, a boy and a girl. My husband cried happily. Our families were so happy, and I was too. I felt so blessed having 2 babies. We named them Ariel and Aries. I looked after them for 6 months. Then I decided to return to work. My parents and my parents-in-law were ready to help with the kids while I was away. I returned to the company and became the assistant manager to the manager who got employed after Harper was sent away. The new woman is so nice. I also got to know that Harper had issues with her womb after an accident, which meant she would never be able to birth a child. Yeah, the universe punished her well enough, didn't it?
Baby, you don't have to take sides. You don't have to defend her. People like her are liabilities, I know that. Come on, don't pretend. She stresses you a lot, right?
Can you stop this? You're embarrassing me in front of my sister, Johnson. She's not a burden to me, okay?
But you know she is. We've been together for a year, love. I know when you're lying, and right now you are. Tell me, do you help her clean her butt when she uses the toilet?
Hi. My name's Lily, and I'm 24 years old. I live with my elder sister, Lana, who's 27. We've been living together since I was 19. Lana works as a developer at 3 different gaming companies, while I work as a remote marketer. I finished college early, when I was 21, and got a job 2 years after. On the day I graduated from college, I got into an accident that nearly claimed my life. I was unable to walk after. Lana's fiancé, Johnson, didn't like me. He and Lana had met about a year ago. He was a business partner of one of the gaming companies she worked in. My sister hates disappointing people, so she refused to introduce him to us until he proposed. Since she was big on marriage, she tried to avoid introducing any unsure relationship to us. So, when she told me Johnson proposed and she'd introduced him to our parents, my joy knew no bounds. I was so excited and eager to meet the man who'd captured my sister's heart and trust. Sadly, our meeting didn't turn out to be as I imagined. When Johnson and Lana walked in, I excitedly wheeled myself toward them and extended my hand for a shake. Hi, Johnson. I'm so excited to finally meet you.
What? A cripple? I can't believe this. She must be a liability to you, baby. Why don't you just let her be with your parents?
Excuse me? She's my sister, Johnson. I love being around her, and she's not a liability.
Well, yeah. Shockingly, the first time I met Johnson, after expressing so much happiness, that was his reaction. I felt a pang of sadness in my chest. I knew I wasn't a liability to Lana. She often offered to help me with certain things, but I always refused. I didn't ever want to be a burden to her, so I learned to do everything on my own. I took care of myself well, despite my predicament, and Lana always told me how proud she was of me. So, hearing him call me a liability made me feel sad and pissed.
Baby, you don't have to take sides. You don't have to defend her. People like her are liabilities, I know that. Come on, don't pretend. She stresses you a lot, right?
Can you stop this? You're embarrassing me in front of my sister, Johnson. She's not a burden to me, okay?
But you know she is. We've been together for a year, love. I know when you're lying, and right now you are. Tell me, do you help her clean her butt when she uses the toilet?
Excuse me? There. I lost my cool. What? How could he say such a thing? I respect you a lot, but I won't stand and watch you say such things about me.
You can't even stand, young lady.
Johnson!
That was the truth. Can she stand? She ought to use words she can make happen. She could have easily said, sit.
My lips trembled as I got teary. He was being so disrespectful to me. I couldn't believe that I was so happy to meet such a horrible person.
Get out of my house, Johnson! Get out, you piece of shit!
Lana pushed him out and rushed back to comfort me. She promised to end things with him, but I refused to be the cause of that. To introduce him to our parents, I knew Lana loved him. I couldn't bring myself to be the reason for their separation. You won't do that, Lana. I can't let it happen. I'll avoid him until he accepts me, okay? She was sad, but she finally accepted and apologized to me. I believed and hoped that Johnson would apologize to me too. I deserved that. Unfortunately, he never did. I didn't bother anymore. After about a month, they began making plans for their wedding. My sister got a promotion and felt it was the right time to get married. One day, I was home with Scott, her best friend, when Lana and Johnson walked in. He greeted Scott, but when I greeted him, he ignored me. "Johnson, I said hi to you."
I refused to reply. "I don't wish to speak to you. Can you let me be?" "Gosh, come on, man, don't be like that. She's your sister-in-law. You should be respectful to her."
"It's fine, Scott. I'll just go to my room." Lana tried to stop me, but I gave her a reassuring smile before wheeling myself away. In my room, I heard their yelling, and I knew they were fighting because of me again. I felt so sad. After that day, I made sure to avoid Johnson. I moved my things to my room and worked from there so that they won't walk in while I'm in the living room. Lana didn't like that and felt bad, but I assured her that I was fine. Well, their wedding day drew closer and we began hastening the plans. One day, Scott, Lana, and I were in the living room picking out me and Scott's dress when Johnson walked in. I was startled and made to go to my room when Lana stopped me. Thankfully, Johnson ignored me. Well, I did the same. He went to sit beside Lana and took the design book.
"What are you doing?"
We're picking out dresses for Scott and Lily. Lily's gonna be my chief bridesmaid.
I watched as Johnson's face contorted into a frown. He stood up angrily, and I knew he was going to go livid.
"She's coming to our wedding? I can't believe you, Lana. How can you let this disabled thing come to our wedding? She's gonna embarrass us in front of my business partners."
Don't say that, Johnson. This is my sister. Can you hear yourself? She has to be at my wedding. It's a must, okay?
I felt bad seeing them arguing again. At the same time, I also felt angry. Why would he not want me at my sister's wedding? I could tolerate him hating me, but not this. Scott stepped in and tried to make Johnson understand that I had to be in attendance, but Johnson refused to listen. He kept yelling, and at one point, he nearly slapped me. Scott had to step in and kick him out of the house. My sister burst into tears, and I did too. I felt so bad because I was the cause of it. I tried to tell her to take me out of the wedding attendee list, but Lana wasn't having any of it.
You're my sister, Lily. I will never pick a man over you. I will call off this wedding if Johnson refuses to let you be my bridesmaid.
Before I could speak, she stormed out of the house. I started crying again. Thankfully, Scott was there to support me. Lana reported the issue to the whole family after Johnson kept refusing. A family meeting was held, but I refused to attend. I didn't want more trouble than I'd already caused. Scott was there. He'd already become like family to us. I also knew he cared a lot about Lana. He liked her, but couldn't tell her because he was afraid of losing their friendship. He came home first after the meeting to tell me that Lana had called off the wedding.
"Johnson kept saying offensive things about you. Your parents and his parents warned him, but he didn't stop. Lana got angry and called off the wedding."
I felt even worse. My sister wouldn't be getting married because of me. I needed to be left alone, so I asked Scott to leave. He tried to protest, but I yelled at him and he eventually left. I locked the door and went to my room to cry my eyes out. About 30 minutes later, I heard the front door open. I thought it was Lana, so I left my room so I could apologize. You can imagine my shock when I saw Johnson. He looked drunk and angry. Before I could speak, he pounced on me and began hitting me. He slapped, punched, and even strangled me. He was so angry. According to him, I had ruined his marriage plans with Lana. I began to scream for help when he started taking my clothes off. I knew what was going to happen. Just after my last button was off, Scott and Lana walked in. Apparently, Scott was scared that I'd hurt myself, so he'd gone to get Lana. Seeing me in that situation, they quickly stepped in and pulled him away. Angrily, Scott began punching him. He didn't stop until Johnson fell and fainted, his nose and lips broken. The cops were quickly called and they arrested the unconscious man. There, they discovered that on his way to our house, he hit someone with his car and ran away. He panicked and went somewhere and started drinking before coming to where I was. If others didn't find the woman, she would have died there. News spread quickly. Johnson was a famous man as well as his gaming company. Immediately people heard the news, they began hating him. They stormed his house, destroying and also stealing things. His car's windows were broken, the tires bursted. People also boycotted his games. In barely 2 weeks, his workers resigned. His company was abandoned. He was canceled. Well, Johnson was kept in the custody of the cops. Lana and I delayed his trial so he would witness his downfall before going to jail. And yes, he was miserable. His eyes were dead, and he had huge eye bags, as well as dark under eyes. His hair and beard overgrew. He looked tattered. We eventually charged him to court where he was sentenced to 20 years imprisonment for attempted murder, attempted rape, and physical assault. After that, Lana broke down. She loved Johnson, so I could understand her pain. I had to move into my parents' house to give her space. Scott was with her. He was the only one she allowed in her space. He took care of her and hardly ever left her side. After 1 year, Lana was finally over him. She refused to date anyone else. I moved back in with her and she apologized for shutting me out. I understood and also apologized for being the main cause of her issue with Johnson.
Don't ever blame yourself. He's a bad and evil man. He would do the same to someone else.
I also got to know that he had anger issues and even hit Lana twice. I stopped blaming myself and accepted that he was bad. 2 years later, after I even moved out of Lana's house, she still refused to date anyone. I knew Scott was still in love with her, so I told her about it. I was surprised when she shyly told me she was aware. She also liked him, but was waiting for him to confess. Eventually, they both confessed and began dating. I was so happy because I knew she was in good hands. They only dated for 6 months before getting married. Everyone was so happy. Even Johnson's parents attended the wedding and were happy for Scott and Lana. 3 months after their wedding, I tried therapy sessions to see if I could walk. Fortunately, it worked. A year later, I was finally able to walk a few distances. It's been 6 years now. I walk properly and don't need any support. I'm married and have a kid with my husband. Lana and Scott already have 2 kids and are living happily. They both started a gaming company 2 years back, and it's one of the popular gaming companies now. As for me, I have my own marketing brand, and my husband is a well-known businessman with companies scattered around the globe. As for Johnson, he's still in jail. I visited him a year ago to spite him. He was shocked to see me walking and even more shocked to hear about how good all of us are doing. He had become even more miserable and looked way older than his age. He did beg for my forgiveness and asked me to apologize to Lana. I refused. He doesn't deserve my forgiveness, and Lana refuses to listen to anything about him. He can rot in jail alone for all we care. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment. My parents were obvious about preferring my sister to me. They never let me go on excursions, never paid for any school events, delayed my tuition every time, and let me take public transport to school. However, my sister's case was the exact opposite. Whatever she needed was provided for her. My parents would boast about her everywhere they went while I was forgotten. I was older than my sister with 2 years, but my parents made sure the school put us in the same class. Hi, my name's Misun. In a few weeks, I'll be celebrating my 35th birthday. I live in my own apartment and have 2 companies of my own. I have no family except my husband and children, as I was disowned and kicked out by my very own parents years ago. Growing up, I wasn't much of a genius academically. However, I did my best and always emerged in the top 5. My parents didn't seem satisfied by that. Instead, they were only interested in my younger sister, Sujin, who never failed to top her class. We both used to be in the top 5, but from the moment we got into senior high school, she began to top the class. I wouldn't say that was the only reason they preferred her, but that was the main one. My parents were obvious about preferring my sister to me. They never let me go on excursions, never paid for any school events, delayed my tuition every time, and let me take public transport to school. However, my sister's case was the exact opposite. Whatever she needed was provided for her. My parents would boast about her everywhere they went while I was forgotten. I was older than my sister with 2 years, but my parents made sure the school put us in the same class. During our high school graduation, I was made to sit away from them. When I was acknowledged as the 5th best student, my parents didn't cheer. They ignored me and faced my sister instead, getting her ready for her award. As expected, she was the overall best. My parents cheered the most. They nearly followed her to receive the award. I was all alone, feeling bad and blaming myself for not being good enough. After the ceremony, I approached my family. My presence was unnoticed until I touched my mom. On our way home, I was made to listen to them praising my sister nonstop until we got home. We got into college together, and it was even worse there. I had a hard time trying to take in everything, but my genius sister seemed to be having it easy. As always, she topped the class. However, I was unable to be among the top 5 as I used to be. College wasn't so easy. After the results of our first exams were released, my parents flared up on seeing I was among the top 10.
You idiot! We barely managed you being in the top 5, and you had the guts to go even lower? What kind of a daughter are you? How could you do this to us, huh? Your sister topped her class again. Do you have no atom of shame in you?
This is the reason we love her more. She's better than you could ever be.
While they were yelling, my sister walked in.
You gotta study well, son. You're so terrible. I can't cope with the fact that you're my sister.
She's nothing but an unserious fellow. You shouldn't be speaking to her.
I just thought she needed to be told the truth. Son, don't you think you should drop out? Our parents barely have enough money for me. You should drop out so they can focus on me.
Yes, your sister's right. You should drop out and get a job or something. I don't think you're meant for education.
Consider that option. You don't have to worry about getting a job later in the future. Your sister's going to grow up and own her own hospital. You could work for her later on.
I'm sorry, but I can't do that. I'm going to work harder and emerge with a better result.
You know that's impossible, me son.
Yes, son. You don't have to try. You can't get better results.
I wouldn't know unless I try. Excuse me. I walked away from their presence and headed to my room where I buried my face in my pillow and cried. The next exams, I was in the top 5 again. I returned home filled with excitement, but as usual, my parents ruined it.
Your sister was the overall best again. Do you think we would be happy seeing you come third?
Get lost, loser. If only you could come right behind me. I know it's impossible for you to go past me, but at least quit being a loser and try being right behind me.
But I'm trying. I'm doing all my possible best to satisfy you all. This is unfair.
Unfair? You ungrateful wench. We let you stay at our house, put clothes on you, and even feed you. But what do you bring to us? Disappointment.
Ignore her, sweetheart. She can't help but try to pour her anger on someone.
If you say one more word, you'll get it from me. You good for nothing.
What did I ever do to y'all? You shouldn't have had me if all you planned to do was make me feel miserable every day of my life.
We do regret having you.
We would have been fine with our beautiful daughter.
You heard that, loser.
Why? Because she's brilliant and I'm average. Huh? I'm your daughter too. Love me too. I'm doing everything I can to impress you. I was in heavy tears, but they didn't seem to have even the slightest amount of pity for me.
Well, if you're being entitled to our love just because we're your parents, then I disown you.
What?
You heard him right, stupid. From this moment, you cease to be our daughter. Take your things and leave our house.
But I have nowhere to go. Please don't do this to me.
You could try sleeping in the streets. Make friends with your soon-to-be fellow homeless people.
I could hear the mockery in her so-called advice. I was sad. I didn't think my parents would ever disown me over my results. I went on my knees and begged them because I had nowhere to live except their house. Please don't kick me out. I could stay in your house as a stranger, if that's what you want. I could get a part-time job too. Just don't kick me out. I beg you.
Daddy, I'm getting irritated by her, please. Should I throw her bags out myself?
Oh, sweetheart, how can I let an intelligent young lady like you touch a loser's bag? I'll do it myself.
My father dashed into my room, took my things, and threw them out carelessly.
I never want to see you again, loser. Leave my house.
I tried to beg my mom, but she pushed me away roughly. Without a choice, I took my things and walked away, dejected. I was left alone on the streets, hungry and in tears. I'd also only finished my first year. I worried about where to get the money to further my education. I got a job at a multi-purpose factory 2 weeks later, but I lived on the streets for 2 whole months before I was able to get myself a small apartment. Although it was quite uncomfortable, I endured it. Life at the factory was insanely stressful, but the pay covered up for the stress. The next month, I already had my tuition fee. I spoke to the manager about working part-time.
This is going to cut a quarter out of your salary.
I was fine with that. I agreed and continued my education while working. Life was hard for me, but I was relentless. I maintained being in the top 5, ignoring my parents' obsession of topping the class. 3 years later, I was finally done. Fortunately, a month after, I got a better job at a successful company as the assistant marketing manager. I was also given a house and a company car. Those weren't my goals, but I was overjoyed knowing that I was slowly going up the ladder. Meanwhile, my sister came out as one of the best students. My parents were disappointed, as they expected her to maintain her streak until the end. However, they didn't lash out on her. 6 months later, she got a job as an assistant nurse. My parents were enraged.
Not even a nurse, but an assistant? We expected you to open up a hospital.
A hospital? Do you think it's that easy? How am I gonna open a hospital without money, huh?
Well, you better work hard to get a promotion and open a hospital soon. We need to start getting our money back.
But Soojin wasn't doing well at the hospital. In fact, she was the worst worker. Eventually, she was fired.
What? How dare you get fired?
How dare you yell at me? Did I fire myself? Huh?
Meanwhile, I, on the other hand, was the delicate egg of the company I worked for. I made the company grow bigger by working hard on the marketing of our products. Soon, we were one of the best. My salary was increased too. I saved up enough money and invested a lot. A year later, I was ready to start my own company. I informed them about it, and they were nice enough to support me by offering to be my first partner. With my great marketing skills, I was able to grow my company rapidly. 2 years later, I opened my second company. My family, however, were having it hard. Soojin couldn't get a lasting job. She was doing everything wrongly.
You used to top your classes. What's happening to you?
Top my classes, my ass!
What?
Yes, I knew you both loved me more than me, son. I needed to find a way to maintain that. Seeing how you glorified our cousins who topped their class, I thought I could go that way. So, I stole your money every session and paid the teachers to make me top the class. Did you wonder why it didn't happen during graduation? Because they didn't want my money anymore.
What are you saying?
I'm saying you ruined my life. I didn't even want to be a doctor. It was your dream, not mine.
My parents were shocked. To make it worse, they discovered, 2 weeks later, that my sister was pregnant and had no idea who owned the child. As if that wasn't enough, she tried to abort the baby, but it was the worst decision. She'd gone to a quack. My parents took her to a hospital and she was diagnosed with kidney issues in addition to her initial problem. My parents were heartbroken. For the first treatment, they had to sell their house to pay. They both squatted with my father's unmarried sister. I suddenly got a call from them.
Me, son, child, please help us. We don't have enough money for your sister's treatment and can barely even feed. Do something, please.
I could tell how desperate they were. I'm sorry, but I have no sister. I also have no parents, and I have no idea who you both are. Nor do I have any money to give to you.
Don't do this to us, me, son. We know you have 2 companies that are doing well. You're rich. You should help us because we took care of you.
Like I said, I don't know who you are. If you call me again, I'll be forced to report you to the cops. I wish you nothing but sadness. With that, I ended the call. They tried as hard as they could, but they eventually lost Soojin. Staying too long without treatment led to her death. My father's sister, who was housing them, also kicked them out since she was planning to get married. They were left without a house, money, or child. Last time I heard about them, I learned that they'd lost their minds and were roaming on the streets. I'm married to a lovely man who's completely different from my father, and he also loves our twin girls equally. That's all that matters. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.
I mean, I kind of do. You're just joking about the teachers, right? You can't do anything to them. They're the staff.
The last nitwit teacher who thought they could handle me was sorely mistaken. Not only is his ass gone, but in prison. All I had to do was tell a little fib about him being too friendly with a bottle of alcohol, and I said he assaulted me sexually, and he was axed quicker than a tree on its last legs. No one can prove that I'm lying either. I even planted some alcohol in his office. It was so easy and foolproof. Learn this lesson quick, and you'll do okay around here. Don't mess with me.
There is a hierarchy in every high school. It's a social order that you must adhere to. even at the most prestigious of schools, including my private all-girls high school. We have the jocks, the musical students, the girls who are into math, and then we have the girls who are absolutely untouchable. They have so much power that even the teachers are afraid to stand up to them, no matter how terrible they are. Lauren Montague was one of those students. She was the pretty popular girl who terrorized everyone. There were horror stories that constantly circulated the school of how she would put tacks in other girls' shoes during gym, tearing off other girls' clothing if they made the unfortunate mistake of wearing the same outfit as her, or even making rumors that someone was pregnant, getting them expelled from the school. There was one time that she forgot to do her homework, so she blackmailed me into giving her mine. I gave it to her without hesitation. Rumors were where she held most of her power over others. The Girls' Academy was a very competitive school, and rumors alone were enough to get someone kicked out. Reputation mattered here. There was one rumor in particular that made even the teachers scared to correct her behavior. 2 years ago, the school had a male history teacher, who everyone loved. His name was Mr. Adams. He had been teaching at the school for at least 20 years. He was kind, affectionate, and patient with all of the students. He even got along with the troublemakers because he was so patient with them and compassionate of their situations. They would try harder in his class than in anyone else's. Everyone loved him that much, except for Lauren. He was the only teacher who was brave enough to call her out for being a terrible person to her classmates. He actually stood up to her on my behalf one afternoon.
Ms. Lauren, I understand that you've been spreading rumors about Ms. Morgan cheating on the last history test. I can assure you that she did not, as I monitor my students closely while they are taking tests.
What? I didn't say that at all. You're just taking her word over mine. How can you show such blatant favoritism for students?
She didn't tell me this rumor at all. I watched you tell your friend Miss Regan in the hallway this afternoon. You know how competitive this academy is, and to be spreading rumors like that could cost Ms. Morgan her scholarship. Frankly, this behavior is very unbecoming of you, and not at all suitable of a student at the Girls' Academy. I will now escort you to the principal's office to this matter up with her.
The rumor about me was immediately dispelled, and I didn't have to worry about losing my scholarship anymore, which was a huge relief. However, Mr. Adams was mysteriously fired the next week. Everyone was in shock. How could such a beloved teacher who had been here for so long be dismissed so easily? This was when the rumor started around the school that Lauren was somehow responsible for his termination and got him fired in retaliation for standing up to her. There was a girl in my class named Camila who always knew about the gossip that went on in the school and kept tabs on everyone. We weren't exactly friends because I knew how much she liked to talk about everyone else's business. I knew I couldn't tell her much without the rest of the school knowing, but she was still good for gathering information. Do you know what happened to Mr. Adams?
Oh, yeah. I heard her bragging about it this morning. Lauren got him fired.
What? How could she possibly do that? She's just a student.
She told everyone that she went to go see him during office hours and that he was drunk as a skunk, reeking of alcohol. She said that he even tried to convince her to drink with him, even though we're all underage.
Oh my God, are you serious? I didn't know that
He didn't. She was laughing about it in the hall earlier. She said, I lied about him having an alcohol problem, planted some wine in his office that I swiped from my parents, and he got fired like that. They can't prove I'm lying either. The school had no choice but to fire him, really.
That was 2 years ago. Everyone knew she had lied about poor Mr. Adams, but were too afraid of what she would do to their own reputation if they said anything about it. She was like the quiet queenpin that ruled the school, and everyone knew it. Until one day, she went too far. I happened to be walking home with Camila one day. It wasn't like we were intentionally walking together. We lived in the same neighborhood, and happened to be walking the same way. Camila was especially talkative. I did my best to nod along politely, but wasn't initiating conversation back. As we were walking along, we heard a soft moaning off in the distance. We decided to investigate and follow the noise. As we got closer, we found one of our classmates a little off the sidewalk, nearly hidden in a bush. It was the quiet girl who always got A's in every class, Vanessa. We helped her up and realized the state she was in. Her clothes were in tatters, and she was covered in bluish bruises all over her body. Her face was swollen and there was dried blood stuck to her face. We were so shocked that we didn't even ask her any questions, just stared at her with wide eyes and open mouths. Finally, Camilla broke free of the reverie and spoke. "What in the world happened to you, girl? Are you okay?" Vanessa explained that Lauren had demanded that she write a paper for her, but she couldn't because she was so busy with everything else. Between school, cram school, and working a part-time job to support her sick mother at home, she barely had time to do her own schoolwork. Lauren wouldn't hear any of this and lied to Vanessa's boyfriend to get back at her. She told him that Vanessa had cheated on him with another man and was pregnant with his child. In a blind rage, he attacked her in the street. The two of us immediately called the police. That horrible boyfriend was behind bars now, but that still left us with a major problem. Camila and I looked at each other with the same thought in our eyes. Lauren had to be stopped. To go about this, we had to be sneaky. We had to be cunning. We had to be as backhanded as she was if we were to ever put a stop to her. The only way anyone would ever believe that she was lying was if she admitted it herself. So we thought of a plan. In order for Vanessa to tell on herself, she would need to do it around someone who she didn't feel intimidated or threatened by. We needed to lure her in with a false sense of security so she would let her guard down and tell the truth. The three of us decided to recruit someone who didn't go to our school to talk to her, Camila's younger sister, Katie. Lauren was the class president. She didn't have the grades for it, but she wanted the position and everyone was too afraid to tell her no. One of the duties of the class president was to give prospective students a tour around campus. This is where Katie came in. We sent her to the tour with a secret camera hidden in her hat and let her go to work. We nervously watched them interact on the live camera feed from Camilla's house, waiting for Lauren to incriminate herself. Vanessa was so afraid for Katie that she dared not even take a breath. I had to remind her to breathe.
And you're the class president? Do people listen to you?
Please. I own this school. I own the stupid girls that prance around here, and I own the nitwits that teach here. And when you enroll, I'll own you too. As long as you stay in line, you got nothing to worry about.
What happens to people who don't stay in line?
You don't want to know, kid.
I mean, I kind of do. You're just joking about the teachers, right? You can't do anything to them. They're the staff.
The last nitwit teacher who thought they could handle me was sorely mistaken. Not only is his ass gone, but in prison. All I had to do was tell a little fib about him being too friendly with a bottle of alcohol, and I said he assaulted me sexually, and he was axed quicker than a tree on its last legs. No one can prove that I'm lying either. I even planted some alcohol in his office. It was so easy and foolproof. Learn this lesson quick, and you'll do okay around here. Don't mess with me.
Just like that, we got it. As soon as Lauren finished her sentence, the three of us cheered. With this footage, we can show the principal and get Mr. Adams his job back. The very next day, the three of us stormed into her office and showed her the recording. She watched in a grave silence before turning to us.
Thank you so much for clearing Mr. Adams' name. It pained me greatly to have to terminate him because he had been here for so long and was so beloved by the students. I will share this with the authorities immediately.
Camilla and I jumped in our excitement while Vanessa breathed a deep sigh of relief. We really did it. We avenged all those girls over the years that Lauren had embarrassed, humiliated, or gotten kicked out of school. The principal even started to cry with joy, and I understood why. Lauren had gotten away with so much over the years. She was the tyrant that even the principal was afraid of. She had threatened and blackmailed everyone into a state of complete fear. I knew of some girls who had dropped out of school because they were just too afraid of what Lauren might do to them, even though this was the best high school to prepare for college. For a lot of girls, this school was their last chance at getting a good life. This was their last chance to get into a good school. She had ruined that for so many people. The utter humiliation that she had made them go through made me sick to my stomach. The principal cleared her throat and wiped tears from her eyes.
Clearly, Lauren needs to be expelled immediately for this deviant and maniacal behavior. I am sending this tape to her parents at once. I am also informing them of the role that she played in Vanessa's assault case.
After her parents learned of Vanessa's behavior, they completely disowned her. Apparently, they took her out of their will and left her nothing. They even went so far as to surrender her to the state so that they were no longer her legal guardians. I guess the realization, that they had a compulsive liar for a daughter who got so much joy from manipulating others was too much for them to bear. Before leaving her, they transferred her to a boarding school in a different state so that she wouldn't start any more trouble with the girls at the school again. After she was in the foster program for a couple of weeks, a distant aunt of hers heard what had happened and adopted her. Camila, ever the person to be up to date with the latest gossip, says that her aunt treats her like a servant around the house and has her busy with housework all the time, like cleaning the house, cooking for her, mowing the lawn. Lauren must have inherited her mean spirit from her aunt because the woman verbally abuses her night and day. She's so tough on her that she had fallen behind in her studies and needed to repeat her junior year of high school over again, nothing less than what she deserves. The following week, the three of us found Mr. Adams happily moving back into his office. He was whistling a little work song as he unpacked. When he saw us, he thanked us for the part we played in clearing his name. We told him what was happening with Lauren with her aunt, and he smiled.
I knew she would get what was coming to her.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe.